was filming. It was like a trivia questions video, but I got the idea to do a full video on things that have been accidentally invented, because I always think that those facts are cool, where it's like, oh, this cool product was invented by accident because of a mistake someone made or something like that. So I looked up an article all about accidentally invented things, and I think this will be a nice, relaxing video that you can just sit back and listen to. I know some people comment and they're like, I actually watch your videos despite the trivia, because like I can't relax to trivia, and so this one's for you. I hope it's an interesting, just facts, whispered ramble video. Yeah, I hope you enjoy. So, let's get started. Number one, the first accidentally invented item is the microwave oven. Percy LeBaron Spencer was working on magnetrons, high-powered vacuum tubes that generate short radio waves called microwaves, when he accidentally discovered microwave cooking. The engineer was doing his job as usual when he noticed that the candy bar in his pocket had melted. Quickly, Spencer realized that it was the magnetrons that were causing this phenomenon. By 1945, he had filed a patent for his metal cooking box powered by microwaves. Number two is Post-it notes. As the Post-it website tells it, 3M scientist Dr. Spencer Silver was doing research on strong adhesives when he came across quite the opposite, one that stuck lightly to surfaces but didn't bond tightly to them. Silver initially had no idea what to do with his discovery, but years later, another 3M scientist, Art Fry, came to him with the idea to create a bookmark that could stick to paper without damaging it. Eventually, that bookmark became the Post-it note. Number three is the first artificial sweetener. Saccharin, the first artificial sweetener, was discovered in 1878 by Konstantin Fahlberg. The Russian chemist was working in the lab of chemistry professor Ira Remsen when he accidentally tasted some of the chemicals he was working with and realized how sweet they were. What a lucky duck. Accidentally tasting your chemicals. Okay. After some experimentation, Fahlberg concluded that sugariness was caused by the reaction of O-sulfobenzoic acid with phosphorus chloride and ammonia to create benzoic sulfamide or saccharin. Please don't taste your chemicals in the lab. Okay. Number four is penicillin. Discovered was out of Baker's chocolate. Thinking on her feet, Wakefield decided to chop up a Nestle semi-sweet chocolate bar, assuming that it would melt and spread evenly throughout the batter. Instead, what came out of the oven was the very first batch of chocolate chip cookies, and modern dessert was never the same. That is very cool. So there were chocolate cookies before chocolate chip. That's awesome. Number 6 is the X-ray machine. On November 8th, 1895, physicist Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen was in his laboratory in Würzburg, Germany, experimenting on a vacuum tube covered in cardboard when he noticed a mysterious glow emanating from a chemically coated screen nearby. Confused and intrigued, he named the new rays causing this glow X-rays due to their unknown origin. And after playing around some more with the new rays, he discovered that putting his hand in front of the glow allowed him to see past his skin to his bones, thus leading to the world's first X-ray. I wonder if that guy got cancer. Just like, oh, hey, look, I can see through my hand all I want. Number 7 is super glue. Back in 1942, Harry Coover was looking for materials he could use to build clear plastic gun sights for the war. But what he discovered instead was a chemical formulation that stuck to everything it touched. However, his discovery was rejected because researchers didn't see a need for such a sticky formula, and it wasn't until 1951 that the same formula was embraced and repurposed by Coover and fellow Eastman Kodak researcher Fred Joyner as alcohol-catalyzed cyanoacrylate adhesive compositions, or superglue, as the patent reads. How did they not see the use of superglue? Number 8 is the implantable pacemaker. An adjunct professor of engineering at the University of Buffalo, Wilson Greatbatch, accidentally invented the pacemaker in 1956. When working on building equipment intended to record heart sounds, the scientist used the wrong transistor and discovered that instead of recording sounds, his device gave off an electrical pulse, mimicking that of the heart. Greatbatch presented his invention to William Chardak, a surgeon at Buffalo's Veterans Administration Hospital in 1958, and together the two were able to successfully control a dog's heartbeat, and in 1960, a human's. Nice. Number 9, potato chips. One of America's most popular snack foods, the potato chip was invented in 1853 by George Crumb, a chef at the Moon Lake Lodge Resort in Saratoga Lake, New York, when one of his customers complained that their French fried potatoes were too thick and mushy. As legend has it, Speck's solution was to thinly slice and fry some potatoes until golden brown, and the patron loved what was to become the first ever batch of chips. I feel like the guy that complained about the potatoes should get some credit. Well, no, probably not. Number 10 is Teflon. You might not recognize it by name, but Teflon is a synthetic polymer used to make everything from non-stick cooking pans to nail polish. And though it's a genius invention that changed the way we cook, clean, and groom ourselves, the man who discovered the product, Roy J. Plunkett, did so by accident. The scientist was working at the DuPont Company's Jackson Laboratory in 19 researching refrigerants, which helped to supply air conditioning and refrigeration, when he noticed that some of his gas had turned into a white powder. After some testing, Plunkett concluded that the substance was heat resistant with low surface friction, giving it the perfect properties for the many uses we see today. Number 11 is champagne. That's cool. Because they lived in such high altitudes, the monks of Champagne had plentiful access to all the best grapes. The problem, when the temperatures plummeted in the colder months, the fermentation process on the wine would stop temporarily, and when it began again in the spring, there would be an excess of carbon dioxide inside the wine bottles, which would give the wine unwanted carbonation. In 1668, the Catholic Church decided that it was time to handle the situation, and so they brought a French monk named Dom Pierre Perignon over to Champagne to fix the fermentation problem. However, by the end of the 17th century, people had decided that they actually enjoyed this drink, and Perignon's task thusly changed into making the wine even fizzier. Eventually, Perignon developed the official process for making champagne, known as the French method, crowning him the inventor of the celebratory sip. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Number 12 is chewing gum. Though variations of chewing gum have been around since ancient Greece, the gum that we know today wasn't invented until the late 1800s. It was then that an American inventor named Thomas Adams Sr. stumbled upon the chewy treat, but only after first trying and failing to turn the chicle, the substance that gum is made out of, into rubber. He was trying to make rubber and made gum instead. That's funny. I've never had a piece of gum. I think you guys know that about me. Or I've said it many times, but never chewed a piece of gum before. Number 13 is popsicles. Popsicles. Believe it or not, the popsicles creator was none other than an 11-year-old boy named Frank Epperson, who simply mixed some soda powder with water and left it out overnight with the stirrer still in entirely by accident. When he woke up in the morning, Epperson decided to lick his frozen soda blend, and he found that it actually tasted pretty delicious. Originally, the young entrepreneur declared his concoction the Epsicle, combining the word icicle with his name, but he later amended the name to Popsicle, as children would refer to the ice pops as Popsicle anyway. That is funny. Number 14 is Coca-Cola. The man who created the syrup for Coca-Cola was not a chef or even in the food industry. Rather, the soda's inventor was a pharmacist by the name of Dr. John Stith Pemberton, who was seeking to create a cocaine and caffeine-filled alcoholic drink that people with chemical addictions to drugs could use to wean off of morphine and other drugs. However, when Prohibition hit, Pemberton was forced to take the alcohol out of his formula, though the cocaine remained for decades, and thus the first bottle of Coca-Cola was made in 1886. Wow. It had alcohol and cocaine at first. Jeez. Number 15 is dynamite. Though the explosive substance nitroglycerin was invented by Ascanio Sobrero, it was Alfred Nobel who used it to make dynamites. While in Paris, Nobel began to experiment with nitroglycerin, and eventually he accidentally found a way to tame the substance by mixing it with kieselguhr. Though in the process many people lost their lives, including Nobel's brother, so he forewent the water part of his plan and called his new alcohol Brandwin, meaning burnt wine in Dutch. Brandwin. Okay. So is brandy still just like concentrated wine? I don't know. Number 20 is quinine. Quinine, the anti-malarial drug composed primarily of cinchona tree bark, was allegedly discovered by an indigenous South American. While suffering from malaria, the man accidentally consumed some cinchona bark, thought to be poisonous, via a pool of water, and miraculously he started to feel better almost immediately. So he was trying to kill himself. Oh wow. That's crazy. Number 21 is dry cleaning. Though the inventor of dry cleaning, Jean-Baptiste Joly, did work in the clothing industry as a textile maker, his discovery of a revolutionary new cleaning method was completely by accident. It was only when his maid accidentally knocked a kerosene lamp over onto a tablecloth that he observed that the kerosene actually made the cloth cleaner, thus spawning the idea for the very first dry cleaner. Number 22 is Vaseline. Excited about the possibilities of what could be made with petroleum, 22-year-old chemist Robert Augustus Chesbrough decided to head to the town where the product had been discovered to play around with it a bit. While there, Chesbrough observed that the men drilling the petroleum would use a byproduct of the process on their skin to soothe and heal cuts and burns, and he turned this observation into the product known today as Vaseline. Wasn't it the people that were using it on their skin that kind of discovered it? Number 23 is the ice cream cone. Today, ice cream fanatics have a choice between enjoying their treat in a cup or a cone, but that wasn't always the case. According to the stories, it wasn't until the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair that someone came up with the idea to spin a wafer-like waffle into the shape of a cone, and this idea was birthed simply out of necessity. When an ice cream vendor at the fair ran out of dishes to serve his ice cream in, the vendor next to him, named Ernest A. Hemwe, came up with the idea to shape his waffles into cones as vessels for the frozen treat. I feel like I would never come up with that. Be like, oh, you don't have any more cups, let me like use my waffles. I don't know. Smart guy. Number 24 is Botox treatment. In the 80s, a San Francisco ophthalmologist was testing out new treatments for crossed eyes, and though he found it, what he also discovered was that his treatment had miraculous facelifting side effects, leading to the creation of Botox. Nice. Number 25 is tea bags. Though two women first filed a patent in 1901 for a tea leaf holder made out of mesh, the invention of the modern tea bag is credited to tea merchant Thomas Sullivan. In 1908, Sullivan began shipping samples of his tea out in small silk pouches, and though his invention wasn't for people to use these as tea bags, customers did so anyway, and they loved the convenience of it. Tea bags are great. Like, I can't imagine not having that. Okay, number 26 is the safety pin. Safety pin. Supposedly, inventor Walter Hunt was sitting at his desk trying to figure out a way to pay off when he started to futz around with some wire. As he played around with the scrap of metal, he discovered that when coiled, it could clasp to itself and unclasp again. And on April 10th, 1849, Hunt patented his idea for the safety pin. Sorry, I know I'm getting a little I can't speak anymore. I've just been filming a lot today. Number 27 is Silly Buddy. During World War II, engineer James Wright was tasked with inventing a cheap alternative to synthetic rubber. While working on finding a substitute, Wright dropped boric acid into silicone oil and discovered that the resulting product was stretchy and bouncy, with the added bonus of being able to copy words from newspaper clippings and comic strips. However, Wright's employers weren't impressed by his nutty putty, and it wasn't until a few years later that businessman Peter Hodgson saw the potential in it. Funny. Number 28 is bubble wrap. Engineers Alfred Fielding and Mark Chevin did invent bubble wrap on purpose, but when they made it, the intended use for the product was all wallpaper, not as packing material. However, when their bubbly wallpaper proved to be unsuccessful, the two entrepreneurs decided to pivot and market their product instead as greenhouse insulation, and later in 1960 as protective packaging. Wallpaper. Can you imagine having bubble wrap as your wallpaper? What was that for? So you wouldn't get hurt bumping against the walls, or what? What? Bubble wrap as wallpaper. I don't know. Number 29 is French fries. The name may suggest otherwise, but it's actually the Belgians who claim to have invented this classic potato dish. According to local lore, the whole thing kicked off back in the winter of 1680, when rivers froze, leaving the fried fish-eating population without anything to eat. To help keep everyone fed, they decided to use potatoes instead, making sure to cut them into long segments before throwing them in the fryer. So it was kind of supposed to be like a replacement for fried fish, and they were like, let's just put potatoes in the fryer. Okay, and I think this will be our last one, number 30, and it is smoke detectors. Smoke detectors. Swiss physicist Walter Jaeger accidentally invented the smoke detector in the late 30s. At the time, he was working on a sensor that could identify poison gas. It wasn't until he lit a cigarette that he realized the invention was better at picking up smoke particles instead. Unfortunately, it proved too expensive to be mass-produced and sold commercially at the time. It would take about another 40 years for smoke detectors to be made cheaply enough to be regularly installed in homes. That's pretty cool. It's interesting to learn about the ones that are like inventions you think of. You think of the smoke detector as like an invention where there was a time where it didn't exist. But things like chocolate chip cookies or potato chips, I think that's really cool because I don't think of that as like an invention, You don't think about the fact that there was a time before potato chips or chocolate chip cookies. So those were like my favorite ones from this video, were just the really random ones. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. There should have been 30. I think there were 30 accidentally invented things, and I think it was cool. If you saw, I don't know if this actually might go up first, but I just filmed like a multiple choice trivia questions video, and it was about how, like, one of the questions was about how the Slinky was was invented, and that gave me the idea to make this video of like accidentally